Welcome to my channel, Hotspot with Loveth, the ultimate spot for all things entertainment, ranging from celebrity gists, reviews, interesting stories, and African folktales. Subscribe now.
Mira glanced up from her canvas, her brush hovering just above the paint as she studied the man before her. Nathan sat on the stool, his pose relaxed yet full of strength, a quiet confidence radiating from him. He had the kind of rugged handsomeness that brought out her artistic instincts, and she found herself endlessly fascinated by the play of light and shadow on his face. But it wasn't just his looks that intrigued her. Nathan had a warmth, a charisma that drew people in, and she was no exception. What had begun as professional admiration had slowly transformed into something more. Her heart raced whenever he entered her studio, and their late-night conversations after her painting sessions had become the highlight of her week. In the quiet moments, she found herself wondering if he felt the same. She poured her emotions into her art, creating portraits that seemed to capture every subtle nuance of his character, every flicker of vulnerability he let slip. Her gallery was soon filled with these pieces, and they began to garner attention from critics and buyers alike. For the first time in her career, she felt on the brink of something remarkable, both in her art and in her heart. One crisp autumn evening, as Mira packed up her brushes, Nathan lingered in the studio, his gaze drifting over the portraits she had created of him. He looked thoughtful, almost troubled, and Mira felt a pang of worry. "Is everything all right, Nathan?" she asked gently, setting down her supplies. He looked at her, his face softening. "Mira, there's something I need to tell you." But before he could continue, he seemed to change his mind, forcing a smile. "It's nothing. I'm really grateful for everything you've done for me. You've made me see myself in a new light." The vulnerability in his voice touched her heart, and she reached out to take his hand. "Nathan, you're more than just my muse. You're someone I care about deeply." They shared a quiet moment, their hands entwined, and Mira felt her heart swell with a happiness she hadn't known in years. A few months later, Mira's career soared. Her collection of portraits featuring Nathan had become the talk of the art world, and galleries clamored to showcase her work. The success was dizzying, but it was Nathan's support that meant the most to her. He attended every exhibit, every show, his presence a grounding force amidst the whirlwind of her newfound fame. One evening, after an exhibition, Mira was approached by a collector who looked at her with an odd expression, holding up a painting that made her stomach twist. It was unmistakably one of her works, a piece from her earliest sessions with Nathan, capturing a gentle, intimate moment. But something was off. She knew she hadn't sold that painting, and the signature on it looked faintly wrong. The collector, Mr. Harris, raised an eyebrow at her hesitation. "Is something wrong, Ms. Thompson? I purchased this directly from a dealer who assured me it was your work." Mira managed a strained smile, her mind racing. "Could you tell me where you bought this piece, Mr. Harris?" He provided her with the gallery's name and contact information, and as soon as she could politely escape, Mira left the exhibition, her heart pounding with a mix of anger and confusion. Who could be behind this? She hadn't sold any of her private work featuring Nathan to outside galleries. Those pieces were supposed to be hers alone. That night, Mira couldn't sleep. The idea of someone profiting off her work, creating forgeries in her name, felt like a betrayal of everything she held sacred. And as she combed through her records, one question kept surfacing: how had the forgery been so close to the original? Only Nathan had seen those private pieces, he had been with her through every stroke of paint. She couldn't shake the suspicion, and the next day, she confronted him. When she found him in her studio, she steeled herself, feeling the weight of the accusation before she even spoke. "Nathan, I need to ask you something. Have you been showing anyone else my work? Selling it without my permission?" His expression shifted, a flash of guilt and fear flickering across his face before he covered it with a forced smile. "Mira, what are you talking about? Why would I?" But the look in his eyes betrayed him. Her heart sank as she saw the truth in his gaze, a truth she had hoped against hope wasn't real. "Don't lie to me, Nathan. Just tell me the truth," she whispered, her voice breaking. He hesitated, then looked away, his shoulders slumping. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was desperate, Mira. I needed the money, and your work it was valuable. I didn't think you'd find out. Mira felt as if the ground had crumbled beneath her. She had trusted him, let him into her life, into her heart. And he had used her, exploited her talent, turning her art into a commodity. How could you do this to me? She demanded, her voice choked with tears. I trusted you, Nathan. I thought you cared about me. I do care, Mira. I made a mistake, but I never meant to hurt you. I saw how much people loved your work, and I thought I could help both of us. I never wanted it to end like this. His words felt hollow, and Mira shook her head, unable to look at him. Please, just go. I need time, I need to figure out what to do. Nathan left, and as the door closed behind him, Mira felt a wave of grief wash over her. She had lost not only a muse but also someone she had loved, someone she had believed was as invested in her work and her dreams as she was. In the weeks that followed, Mira tried to regain her footing. She contacted galleries, exposed the forgeries, and took legal action against the dealers involved. It was exhausting, emotionally and mentally, and the betrayal left scars she feared would never heal. One evening, as she sat alone in her studio, there was a knock at the door. She opened it to find Nathan standing there, looking worn and remorseful. I know you don't want to see me, but I had to come, he said softly. I've been working to make things right. I've sold everything I have to reimburse the collectors, and I've contacted the authorities to take full responsibility. Mira, I'm sorry, I was selfish, and I ruined everything that was good between us. She studied him, seeing the depth of his regret. There was a part of her that wanted to forgive him, to let him back into her life. But the hurt was still raw, and trust was a fragile thing, once broken, not easily mended. I appreciate what you're doing to make things right, she said quietly. But you shattered something in me, Nathan. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. He nodded, looking down. I understand. I wanted you to know that I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make up for what I did. Even if it's not with you. With a heavy heart, Mira closed the door, letting him go. She returned to her canvas, feeling the familiar weight of her brush in her hand. Slowly, she began to paint, pouring her grief, her pain, and her resilience into the strokes. In time, her art would heal her, and perhaps one day, she would find it in her heart to forgive. But for now, she painted for herself, reclaiming the beauty and the truth that no one could ever take from her again.